It's also established that education and awareness on the technology is low and weak. Over 600 sampled respondents answered a questionnaire that tested their extent of knowledge on GMO foods, its safety, their willingness to pay for more GMO food, extent of importance they attach to labeling, or if they care or not the food they eat is a GMO. And this was done over a period of 4 months. So the conclusion is what I read to you. Joining us on the phone line is a lecturer with the Department of Animal Science, Dr. Julius Hagan. Dr. Hagan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We appreciate your time with us, Doc. Thank you. So I know you've had the opportunity to go through this news item and the conclusion of this study. What are your preliminary remarks?
It's not surprising because this is not the first time the issue of GMO has come up. And going through it, I wasn't surprised at all because even in the scientific community, there are two schools of thought. Those who think we should embrace GMO and those who think we should totally reject it. So asking a layman or a non-scientist about their views on GMO, I'm not surprised that quite a number of them will express some kind of unwillingness to accept. So I'm not surprised because this is not the first time we've had such revelations coming from the public.
So, Dr. Hagan, I remember you and I have had this conversation before on this platform, but let me understand this particular part of the research or the survey that was done. The story says when asked to state whether or not they cared the food they eat contain GM ingredient source, 30% answered they cared about the source of the ingredients of their food, 50% stated they did not care about it, and the remaining 20 they were also indifferent. From the research or the surveys that you have done and the discussions that we've had over the month, is this the perception of the general public?
Yeah, as I said earlier on, this is not surprising because the research on GMO is still ongoing, and we've not been able to conclude fully as to the effect because people are worried about the side effects. That has been the issue people are grappling with. It is not about rejecting or not rejecting, but they are looking at how will it affect human beings. So somebody may say today, I'm worried about source of food. I'm not worried, but because they don't understand actually what is GMO. So whether worried or not worried may not necessarily be the issue, but how do they understand? Because there's a lot of misconception. People don't even understand what GMOs are. Because there is what we call biotechnology and genetic engineering. And people normally don't get the actual concept because biotechnology has been with us since time immemorial. So sometimes it's very difficult to know actually what the people mean by they are worried about the source of their food. You need to actually differentiate between those who understand GMO and those who don't understand. Those who don't understand may not actually give you the right information. So that is where my worry is. But if you ask the scientific community whether they are worried about the source of their food, and they say yes or no, that one is totally different from if you ask a non-scientific community.
Okay, now I think this is also quite relevant if we rope you in this particular area. Help us understand where this level of misconception from the general public is coming from. You have earlier stated that people are only worried about the effects of, consuming GMO food. But why that particular misconception? Where did it all start?
Yeah, it's because one, even in the European market, as at now, there are few European countries that have accepted GMO food. They are properly labeled. So, you go to the market, they are labeled. If it is potato, GMO potato. If it is maize or corn, they've labeled. So, what is it. But when you come to our part of the world, we don't label. So, for most of the things we are taking is GMO because we've not actually put down the regulations. It's still in Parliament. It's still being considered because there are two schools of thought. One, I remember some time ago there was this group which stood against it. So the issue is the understanding. That is where I also have a problem because at now there's no clear evidence to show that the genetic material from a GMO material can interfere with that of human beings. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but as at now, there's no evidence to show. It may or may not happen. So that has been the issue in the scientific community.
And that's quite interesting. Doc, am I getting the understanding that even the science community, doesn't have a unanimous front when it comes to GMO foods?
Yeah, that is the issue.
Okay, and what are the positions?
GMO food can be from animal origin or from plant origin. Yeah, we have, and as I said, because of the misconception, I'm an animal breeder. So from an animal perspective, we have something we call transgenesis, where you take a gene from an animal and sometimes you can put it in another animal. So it's like blending two different species, maybe tiger, lion, or there are a lot of funny things people tend to do. You take a gene from one animal, you try to incorporate it in another animal. That is there. So then from plants, sometimes you do what you call put one plant on the other, which is biotechnology, which is totally different from genetic modification or genetic engineering. So personally, because the studies are still ongoing, it is very difficult to say yes or no. And quite a lot of my colleagues in the scientific community also have that stand. It is difficult to say yes or no because you've not concluded on the research on that. But what normally happens is that most of these GMO foods, especially plant-related, because the seeds from them are not viable. So most farmers are worried that if it is accepted, if it's like maize, for instance, if it is accepted, then it means farmers are not going to the farmers cannot use their own maize in planting. I'm not too sure if you are getting what I'm trying to drive at. Because most farmers in our villages plant their own seeds.
Yeah.
But for GMO plants, most of them, the seeds are not viable. So if you buy like maize, for instance, it's only for consumption. Planting it may not germinate. So it means if you want to plant in the next planting season, you have to import the seeds.
As we do with cabbage, as we do with carrot and all that.
Yeah, cabbage, our weather will not permit production of cabbage seeds. So let's take like other vegetables that we have our own seeds, like tomato, pepper.
Okay.
If it is GMO, the seeds may not germinate, may not be viable. So anytime you want to plant, you have to import from the supplier.
Okay, but apart from the economics of it, because certainly that is why, the ordinary farmer or the ordinary Ghanaian, we say, no, you are promoting a culture of dependency, where that is the point. Am I correct?
Yeah, that is one side of it. That is one of the challenges with it, but it has its also advantage. So the disadvantage is what you have now talked about.
Okay.
You become dependent on other countries. So if they don't supply you, you cannot plant.
But I am sure that both from the GMO plants, animal, I'm sure that the misconceptions that people are holding may have some basis. These rumors may not be just coming out because people think so. Help me understand whether there are documented consequences of GMO.
Yeah, there's this company, Monsanto. Monsanto, if you've heard about, they are championing the production of GMOs. They have what we call the MON 810 maize and the BASF and Flora potato. These are GM crops from the US and which has been accepted in the EU market. So those who are propagating the acceptance of GMO, economic reasons, and the other issue is there's increase in population, and we may not be able to produce enough when you continue with this traditional farming. We may not be able to produce enough to meet the increasing population. Look at the typical example, the fall armyworm. We are still grappling with the fall armyworm. Genetic modification can come out with maize variety, which will be able to stand this fall armyworm. So that is one aspect they are looking at. For GMO, you look at the challenge, then you target it. It is also possible that lands which are not fertile for crop production, they can come out with crops which will be able to survive under these harsh weather conditions. So these are the angles they are coming from.
Okay.
These are the angles they are coming from. So that is the advantage they are trying to propagate. But the disadvantage, economically, you become dependent and you are not too sure. As I said, things change. So many years ago, the type of maize, the type of cassava cowpea we used to have, they are not what we are seeing now. There's something we call evolution. Plant, animal, they evolve, they change. So as they change, as the weather change, as things change, these things also change to be able to survive the harsh weather. So these are ongoing. And nature has its own way of eliminating things which are not needed and new things which can survive, continue to reproduce. So these are the issues at stake.
So, Doc, I'm gleaning on some very important information from the Medical News website, and it says that some researchers believe that eating GMO food can contribute, the word is can contribute to the development of cancer. And they argue that because the disease is caused by mutations in DNA, it is dangerous to introduce new genes into the body. So certainly these rumors are not in vain, are they?
Yeah. It's still ongoing.
Okay.
Whenever you introduce a new gene into a system, because GMO basically you change the genetic makeup of the plant or the animal. So you've changed the plant genetically. So if a human being consumes a plant whose genetic makeup has been changed, the argument is that it can also affect the genetic makeup of the human being. But we know mutations take a long time. Mutations can be 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. So because we don't see the effect instantly, people tend to disagree. It's just like radiation. You know, when you undergo this when rays enter your system, when you do that continuously, it can affect your body system. And because people don't see it immediately, when you tell them that this is likely to happen, they may not believe it. So it takes a long time for mutations, the effect of mutation to be realized. So it is possible, as I said, for now, it is difficult to say yes or no, but it is possible. It can take so many years to happen, but it is possible.
Okay. All right. Dr. Hagan, I'll give you the opportunity. Our time is up, but I'll give you the opportunity to make your concluding remarks in this regard.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to, the message I want to send across is that studies about NGOs are still ongoing. And I will encourage my colleague scientists to try as much as possible to simplify, because sometimes when it becomes too technical, the ordinary man on the street may not be able to appreciate it. Let's try to simplify it. As at now, whether yes or no is difficult to tell. I'm in between, depending on what type of product is coming onto the market. But to protect our local farmers, I believe we should rather support our farmers to produce their own seed instead of relying on seeds from other countries, which may not be sustainable. Studies are still ongoing. I said, when new things come, we also educate the public about this. I also thank you for the opportunity to educate the public.
Dr. Julius Hagan, we are grateful that you joined us this morning.
Thank you.
All right. My guest is a lecturer with the Department of Animal Sciences, the University of Cape Coast. Please stay with us. We're taking a breather. We have another interview coming up, and that is with the Ghana Library Authority. This is the Breakfast Show on ATL FM.
What does extra mean to you?
Extra means child data.
More minutes to talk to my loved ones.
Data that doesn't expire.
More talk time.